Hi and welcome back to the Sauer Academy. I'm Max Braun, member in the national rifle team in Germany. My name is Torben Schwetter. I'm the state coach here at the State Performance Center for Sports Shooting in Pforzheim. Today it's all about the prone position, about aiming, and we'll take you with us now.
The last videos were about shot preparation and also in beginning about breathing and the breathing technique. Let's now take a closer look at aiming. Here in the prone position, as with all positions, it is important that the head rests well on the cheek piece. The head should always be placed in the same position, and when the head is placed, it should be followed by a central view through the sight. So through the iris diaphragm, through the rear sight, through the ring front sight in the front sight tunnel, everything should be centered. From the settings, the distance between the head and the sight should be set approximately, and so that then the front sight tunnel takes up about 1/3 of the available field of view. Aiming in detail with shooting glasses, color filter, iris diaphragm, ring front sight sizes will be dealt with again in an extra video, but just to say that everything should be centered so that we always look through the same thing and don't make any mistakes there. This means that head placement is particularly important here, which should be done slowly from above and the head at the end, as already described, and with its own weight should be laid down. Now, I've zoomed in a bit here on the Scatt system so that we can see how Max then goes into the 10 and then keeps a short target time, usually about 2 to 3 seconds in the prone position. It shouldn't be longer. Then the shot should already be executed. Max will now simply take a few shots, and we can then look at the whole thing on the Scatt picture. Now we can only partially see the breathing again, but here in the Scatt video, the yellow line, now comes the repetition, first time exhale. Second breath, I'll stop right here. We can see up here, that is the beauty of Scatt. I can stop the repetition, can go backwards a bit. Now the yellow line has just disappeared. And see that Max has a finish time where he arrives at the 10 of just over a second. So he is relatively safe and shoots quickly. It is actually recommended here to at least 2 seconds that you really paint a yellow ball on the Scatt. If it is set by default, the Scatt system, the yellow part of the line is 1 second. And that's also where the Scatt should end. The Scatt would then be the blue line here again. That was now with a little more movement. Let's see if Max can manage it a little better in the next shot. Here we can see that something didn't fit. He stopped the shot, then repositions his right elbow and has also moved the rifle back a little in his shoulder. Now he's under pressure. The aiming was now much better, also from the release. Let's take another look at the repetition. Here comes the second breath, slightly to the right. At least on the Scatt system, but this could be a calibration error because the shot was positioned at 10.3 high, so really centered. This time he also kept to the 2-second target time quite well. And the shot is in the yellow line. The blue line, the finish, the release, sits in this target cluster. And even after the jump, the red line indicates the jump. It still comes back cleanly. When releasing, it is now important that the finger is lying down and slowly increase the pressure depending on which type of trigger I shoot, whether direct trigger or pressure point trigger. More on this in another video. I either have to have already overcome part of my preferred travel with a pressure point trigger so that I am really clean at the pressure point, which should then, and this should be the case when I exhale for the last time, so that I am ready to shoot and only the trigger weight in the finger slightly increase and overcome this remaining trigger weight, and the shot breaks at the moment I want it to. With the direct trigger, I just have to slowly increase the pressure, but only when I'm already aiming, so that it doesn't break too early, as I don't have a pressure point here. After the next shot, we can also ask Max how he does it, and above all, what he shoots. He can best describe it himself.
Yes, the trigger is always an issue. I definitely prefer a direct trigger. It simply has the advantage, especially in competition under pressure, to feel the advance so finely, and to derive added value from it. I simply don't have that. I simply prefer to shoot with a direct trigger. When I pull a trigger with my finger, I know I'm at the pressure point. And I still have a small amount of forward travel due to the skin, and I think that's completely sufficient for a good trigger pull. The trigger pull itself, the important thing is actually that during aiming, during the last second, no more corrections. So neither in the left arm, nor in the right arm, nor with the grip hand, nor with head or anything else. So absolutely no more corrections, and then pull your finger cleanly back to release the shot. And then the trigger pull is usually quite good and consistent.
Max, when do you have your finger correctly positioned on the trigger? And when do you start to increase the pressure?
My finger is actually on the trigger at the last breath when I pull in. And yes, the pressure is increased very shortly before the shot. So I don't start increasing the pressure from the 5 or so, but for me it's quite shortly before, so that again.
Info, direct trigger, the pressure is really only increased slowly when aiming, and then the shot also breaks during the aiming process. It is important to remember what Max has just said. No more corrective movement at the moment of triggering. The stop must be kept stable. This is definitely easier when lying down than with the other positions. Often it is not necessarily a trigger error, but rather opening the position too early, which then shows a significantly longer blue line on the Scatt, and just at first glance suggests a trigger error, but a closer look reveals that the stop is actually opened too early, so that movements are transferred to the rifle via the shoulder or the hand, and the shot is therefore missed. Max, now another 2 or 3 shots with staying in the position. This is also part of the process, because re-aiming after the shot supports this stability, so that the shot is held beyond the shot, that there is no trigger error, at least not a supposed trigger error, because the position is opened up, but by aiming well, the shot is simply held again. In addition, the athlete also gets information about the jump of his weapon by re-aiming. I can see whether the gun always reacts evenly, whether it jumps the same height, whether it comes back in the same arc. The jumping movement varies from shot to shot simply because the rifle is clamped differently, is fixed differently in the firing position, and it should always jump evenly in any case. If the athlete re-aims after the shot long enough, as we can see here with this shot, the shot goes straight up quickly, but with Max, the re-aiming comes into play even then. We actually have the red line here, which comes back into the target area again, and you can also see that he has retargeted and knows how his jump goes. You want to see your entire jump, okay? So if you're not quite sure whether it always jumps well and evenly, there's a little function in Scatt 2. Let's take a little trip into the software. Up here, there are all target paths. And then I can see all 7 shots superimposed here on the left-hand side of the screen, including the jump and the breathing line. You can check whether the breathing, so the target approach, is evenly constant on top of each other. And I can also see whether the jump curve is at least even, and with a good athlete who also aims evenly, is actually very clearly superimposed, as you can see here. I can also use Control and 6 to zoom in on the 6-point ring, for example, and then take a closer look at the shot images to see where the shots landed. I can also see how well he aimed in between. This is just a small aid for constant target approach and even jump to check this. So that brings us to the end of the prone position. More videos on the position and also on others. Tactics or on the subject of aiming and breathing will be added.